Let's watch a CNN panel that has a doctor on to discuss with the Republican members, with the Democratic members, Trump and MAGA's attack on facts, on intellectualism, and most importantly here on vaccines, on medicine, on science, and the importance of coming to objective, realistic conclusions about health.
I volunteered for that COVID vaccine trial. I was the executive in a safety net hospital
But that doesn't
in
change
Newark,
the
New
facts.
Jersey. We saw
Doctor,
the
it
data.
doesn't change
We
the
saw
facts.
millions. We saw more than 1 million Americans died. You know, we would have seen more
So
if
what's
we didn't have
going
the
on
vaccine.
with the side effects of the vaccine?
The side
Why
effects
can't you
of the
address
vaccine
that when
are
they told us
normal.
that it was
Adverse
not going to
effects
be?
are something
All
different,
right.
and because of that, let me just finish this point. The side effects and adverse
It's normal
effects
for
are
people to
two
get
different
myocarditis
things.
from the vaccine
No,
when
it's
we were
not
told it was
normal for
safe?
people to
Hold on
get
one second. I
myocarditis,
just
but
wanna-
that's
one at a
not
time,
what's
please.
happening. And let's go back to what you were saying.
It is what's
So-called
happening.
experts. We have a so-called leader in the White House that's making
the president.
decisions.
He's not so-called.
No, that's making
He is the
decisions that
president
are
of the
not
United
rooted
States.
in public health science.
But the
You talk
science was
about
not the
people
truth.
not
What we were told was the
respecting
science was not the
experts. Oh, the
truth.
science is true.
Madison.
So do
The
masks
science
work?
is true.
Madison,
Yes,
give me-
they do.
Madison.
I would love to know why MAGA thinks doctors and nurses wear masks in hospitals and have for literally since the beginning of time if they have no effects in helping with transmission. Also, the people rallying against science are the ones you can immediately write off as serious people. You counter science, with more science. You do science to improve science. You don't counter it with fairy tales and conspiracy theories and just what makes sense in your head and then go, welp, because we can't do science anymore. That is insanely stupid. As the only actual doctor on the panel is saying here, side effects and adverse effects are two separate things. Every medicine ever has side effects. It's about weighing those against the benefits. And what we see from like the myocarditis example she gave with the COVID vaccine, the risk for that is minuscule when getting the vaccine compared to the risk to develop myocarditis if you just get COVID while unvaccinated. So even if that was your main fear, your main concern, you would still be better off getting the vaccine. It lowers transmissibility. It lowers rates of things like myocarditis from COVID. It lowers the deadliness of the virus and the effects of things like myocarditis to become deadly. None of these are considered adverse, however. That's a buzzword that this lady probably couldn't even define medically.
When you gut the very teams, scientists, physicians, leaders who have been trained, who have studied, and who have lived experience so that we are not caught flat-footed, so that we are not unable to neutralize threats. You only proliferate threats in the United States and you proliferate those threats abroad. This is not pseudoscience. This is not conjecture. This is not imagination. This is hardcore truth. And there is a fundamental lack of understanding in the White House right now. And you see it with projections of cutting NIH, projections of cutting HHS, CDC, CMS. It doesn't make sense. And you're not going to find any physician that's going to sit here and tell you that those actions are tantamount to good health and well-being.
Exactly. And it's because they don't care about your personal health. Don't get that fooled. That is the last thing on Trump's mind. It's profit. It's business. They care about furthering the industry of big pharma and making those pharmaceutical CEOs rich enough that they'll continue donating to conservatives. The fact that you're going to be twice as ignorant to the facts now, the fact that half of America doesn't believe in vaccines or medicine or medical studies or the word of doctors or that diseases are real because, COVID was bioengineered in a lab in China. I mean, this is truly the degradation of intellect happening before our eyes. Like what is that movie, Idiocracy or whatever it's called? That's quite literally MAGA in this day and age. They think politicians should control the data and research on health and no more than doctors, people who study and have done these things for their entire life. They think politicians should control the data and research on science, not scientists. They think that conservatives know more about science than people who dedicated their lives to these things, all because in reality, the reality of the data bears out things that is uncomfortable to conservative positions. And it shows that their ideology has pretty much been wrong about most things for decades. unironically, like literally, right? So instead, they just want to throw out all the facts and start over, which is quite the shift from the facts don't care about your feelings crowd.
I was a C-suite executive at a safety net hospital when COVID hit, right? And we had a then Trump administration that fomented anti-science, fomented misinformation and disinformation, and flatly, we were not prepared, had dwindled our pandemic and public health preparedness. So you look back and see how poorly we performed at that time, and it looks like we haven't learned our lessons. When threats are proliferating, whether across the globe or when those same threats are here at home, we could talk about the bird flu. We could talk about in Kansas, there's tuberculosis outbreak. We could talk about measles cases cropping up all across the United States. You don't gut the very force, and I'm going to use that word deliberately. You don't gut the very force that's your safety net, that are your guardrails to ensure that everyday Americans can be well and can be thrive. It's misguided. It doesn't make sense. It's actually, frankly, stupid.
I love this woman. She hits the mark on literally everything here. This is exactly what Trump did the last time around and is more subtle, but still an attack on science. More so, I think he was just trying to undo Obama's measures and things that he got put forward, but he defunded the CDC largely, other health organizations and agencies as well, specifically for pandemic-related concerns also. Before then, obviously, COVID hitting, him trying to downplay it till the very last second, which is why it affected us uniquely bad. We saw more job loss, more GDP decline, worse per capita infection and death rate, all under Trump in that first year, largely because Trump had partially dismantled the frontline force of defense that we had against these things. He had also pulled us out of the World Health Organization. So down the line, because of their response and how they were reporting on COVID, which didn't give us the same data collection that other countries had, because preventative health, a lot of which has to do with data collection and research, to its core is, well, to prevent these kinds of things, right? These kinds of infections and deaths from affecting our health, like its name says. And now with us again pulled out of the World Health Organization, the major data collection agency for disease, him going to defund the NIH and CDC, at least by projections or what they're speaking of in these spending bills, pretty much forcing them also to delete anything that doesn't agree with his politics on COVID stuff, on transgender stuff, already having deleted like pages of this on different websites. We're in a pretty scary place where healthcare is now political. It's not fact, it's politics. And this is what MAGA wants. That way they can elicit more authoritarian control and honestly just raise the profit margin in these things. But it's kind of sickening, right? Whether our president is red or blue shouldn't decide what health options we have or what facts on our health are considered real or the scientific reality of the data at hand. It shouldn't matter because of, oh, this person won or this person won. Like how many votes a candidate gets doesn't change the reality of the facts. And that's where I think we need to have a bit of discernment and like separate ourselves from this kind of tribalistic politics bullshit where politics don't matter that much really until we start trying to attach them to every single thing in life that has nothing to do with politics. If a vaccine works or not has nothing, like just ditch the position. Stop pretending that anti-vax is like a political position. If you want to be anti-vax, detach that from politics, because this idea that like the president should decide what is factual and not the doctors, not the people doing the research, is insane. But what can you expect from the party that cheers on alternative facts?